Hello and welcome to Dialogue. On Thursday, China successfully launched its core module for the Tiangong space station from Wenchang spaceport. The launch marks the beginning of an intense construction phase for the three-module space station. So what are the plans for the Chinese space station and what will it help Chinese and international scientists to accomplish? To find out more, I'm joined in the studio by Xu Yansong, Director General of the Asia-Pacific Space Cooperation Organization, and by Skype by Dr. Tricia LaRose, Principal Investigator of the Cancer Research Group Tumors in Space. And later on by Professor Bernard Foin, Director of the International Lunar Exploration Work Group's Euro-Moon-Mars Project and Chair of International Astronautical Federation's Committee for the Utilization of Space. That is our topic. I'm Wang Guan. Mr. Xu, welcome to Dialogue. First of all, can you tell us the significance of this Chinese mission?
Well, if you're talking about building a house, this will be the cornerstone. So we launched the main body or the core segment of the station, the Tianhe, which comprises basically all the element for driving the station. We have the control center as well as the inhabitant areas, as well as the racks for scientific experiments. On board the Tianhe, we have a number of instruments that are ready to control the station from ground up. So we're putting this infrastructure into the right altitude and inclination, which is 400 kilometers above the Earth and 40 to 41 degree inclination that is circling the Earth right now. So we're ready for the next step, which is to send more cargoes into the station. And this is also very crucial because previous missions we have done the microgravity environment fueling process, because as you know that the fueling in ground, you have all the liquid on the floor or the bottom of the container. In microgravity environments, everything is floating. So fueling is challenging as well. So we've done that experiment. So we're ready for the next cargo mission to fuel the Tianhe so that we can sustain the orbit.
To our average viewers who are not necessarily, familiar with the situation, with what the Chinese mission is all about, can you explain to us what are really driving the Chinese, and their passion to send this, to set up this space station?
Well, I think as a Chinese or maybe international space community, you have witnessed a number of very brief and ambitious programs already implemented from China. We have launched the Tianwen-1 Mars mission, and also we grabbed a piece of moon and bring back the sample by the Chang'e 5. Some 1.7 kilograms of lunar samples has been brought back to Earth. That has not happened 40 years since the last Russia mission. So the Tianwen-1 came just naturally after we had a substantial economic development. So that also enabled us to have more ambitious space programs. This is also the third step of the three-step manned mission program, which is to land the moon, land the person into space, launch and also conducting EVA, rendezvous and docking technologies. That is also done by Tiangong 1 and Tiangong 2, and this is the finale to build the Chinese space station starting from today.
That sounds very exciting, although I'm still trying to digest what you're telling me here. Dr. LaRose, let me go to you. You have been very dedicated to medical research in space. Your organization, Tuners in Space, has been doing just that. How do you look at the significance, the importance of this mission?
Well, first, let me say today, from Norway to China, congratulations on the successful launch. Absolutely exciting and really wonderful for us to be able to eventually launch our scientific experiment on the China space station. But I can say that cancer knows no boundaries. Cancer affects everyone in every country around the world. There is no cure. We've tried everything on the ground to find a cure for cancer, and we have not succeeded. So it is time for us to look for solutions to cancer, for prevention and for treatment in outer space, and we're doing that on the China space station.
Right. Can you tell us more about, your cooperation, rather the cooperation between Tuners in Space and this Chinese space station project?
Well, I can say that there is a previous group of Chinese scientists who flew a cancer experiment using two-dimensional cells. We're using organoids, so this is the most advanced cancer research experiment ever conducted in outer space with tumors in space. But a previous scientific group in China did find that spaceflight may slow or stop the growth of cancer. And so this evidence is crucial to tumors in space on the China space station.
Yeah, Mr. Xu, talking about the cancer that is a real threat, that is a potential threat, but that can be an imminent threat for so many families. How important is it for countries, to come together and tackle this challenge?
Well, I think biologically, the space station is very useful for testing a number of new technologies and demonstrating those technologies for application in daily life. We have previously cardiovascular microgravity flight test. We also have testing and experiments on the loss of bones and muscles from space. So these are some of the challenges biologically to the ground crew, to the ground people living on this Earth. We can use space facility to tackle and to find solutions to these problems. I mean, even cancer. And also with the pandemic hitting us with COVID-19, I don't want to exclude the possibility of finding solutions in outer space. So there's always potentials that we can explore and possibilities that we can work on.
Many people are asking, what does this space mission and the experiments there have to do with me and my life? But a lot of these research have something to do with basic research, right?
Yes, we have to understand better. The knowledge that we accumulate is from the ground itself. So we have always considered the microgravity or environment as one of the environment that we have to validate and to demonstrate new technologies, such as fluid dynamics, such as combustion in outer space, and even biologically to see the difference between plants and animals and how they behave in outer space. These are all new areas that we want to witness or to demonstrate and test by ourselves. We have done the protein crystallization decades back with the return capsule. And along that, we also had the seeding program, which is to expose the agricultural seeds in outer space and to bring it back and cultivate and see if there's a better harvest. So everything is connected to outer space, not to mention some of the infrastructures that we're using in daily life, including navigations and telecommunications. We have been taking granted for those facilities, like using our cell phones to know the locations and to travel. So without a GPS and navigation system, everything will be blacked. So will be blocked. So we always have a saying that if you switch off space facility for one day, you would lose everything. You lose the weather forecast, you lose the telecommunication, you lose navigation, and basically you're blind people.
Yeah, thank you for educating us about the importance of this research, myself included. Dr. LaRose, do you agree? I mean, do you have anything to add?
Absolutely. Space technology drives our science. Because we are the most advanced cancer experiment in outer space, we're using organoids, which are actually biopsies from cancer patients. So it's real 3D human tissue. We need to build our experimental unit from the ground up. We can't purchase it. This research has never been done before. And while we're driving forward with this innovation for our technology, there's an unlimited potential for spin-offs that could work in laboratories on the ground, in clinics and hospitals, all around the world. And so most certainly technology really helps. It really drives our science forward when we're talking about space applications. Absolutely.
Right. Dr. LaRose, so far half of all American astronauts who have landed on the moon have died due to various disease caused by cosmic radiation. Does the space environment have fatal impact on astronauts?
That's a tough question. Perhaps we should be asking, does it have a fatal impact on taikonauts rather than astronauts? But certainly cosmic radiation is absolutely deadly. And one of the things we're doing with tumors in space is we're looking to see the unique mutational signature of cosmic radiation. we can actually look for a fingerprint in the DNA of our organoids to see whether cosmic radiation leaves this fingerprint. We can then look at different disease states in our taikonauts, for example, to see if that same mutational signature is present. So in this way, we can actually predict the risk of different diseases that is associated with cosmic radiation.
Well, another important question, the gender gap. According to UNESCO data, women currently account for less than 30% of scientific researchers in the world. How do you see the gender gap in science and engineering?
Oh, that's a tough question. You're speaking to a scientist who has a 6-month-old baby girl at home. And I can say it's challenging raising a family. Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, she's lovely. Perhaps her first word will be in Chinese. We'll see.
That would be awesome.
But it's challenging. As women, we have different gender roles. We take care of our family in a different way in our home, and this is around the world. And so it is challenging when we prioritize our family units. But beyond women, there are other people all around the world who also need a voice, who are also marginalized. And I would say that voices in China, regardless of gender, are equally important on the world stage. It's time for China, for science and technology in China to reach that world stage, to be recognized and to be reputable. And this is why Tumors in Space is absolutely thrilled to be sending our experiment on the China space station.
Right. Thank you so much for sharing with us the stories. And Mr. Xu, talking about the selection process, the qualifications of astronauts going forward for future missions, of course, this is, a state secret, but I mean, from an expert's point of view, what would be the qualifications for picking future astronauts?
Well, I think space travel has become normalized because of there are a number of tourists already been to space, and the International Space Station has been accommodating quite a few visitors. Not only we're choosing astronauts from Air Force, that was a tradition before also by NASA and by Russia and also by China. But with the progress of scientific innovations, the presence of scientists and technicians on board the space station have become more and more imminent and important. So we're choosing a physically fitted person to be on board the station. This is also not only for the crew themselves, but also for the experiments and science that they're conducting. For example, like the organization that is working on medications, we can send some kind of doctor who understands better the biological changes on board the station, so that he can witness by his own eye the growth or the disease of the cells on board the mission, instead of bringing back the samples or the data back, which are more cold than the livelihood of vivid experiment. So scientists on board the mission, on board the station, is very important in the future missions. If you want to do something fundamental and cutting edge, I think to board a scientist on board the mission, on board the station, is very important.
Right. Talking about these missions, Dr. LaRose, U.S. laws heavily restricts NASA scientists from collaborating directly with China. You noted that you and your colleagues encountered unexpected levels of hesitancy toward granting applications related to the Chinese space station. To what extent do you think geopolitics will add difficulties to the level of international cooperation?
That's an excellent question. And as far as I understand, China is becoming more and more open to collaborating with NASA, for example. And in my work at the International Space University in France, I've worked with many Chinese colleagues and NASA colleagues in the same room because it's a neutral forum for space training and education. So I think it's time for us to have a shift in our mindset. I mean, here we are with the China space station being coordinated by the United Nations, which tells us we can have confidence we are accessing space for peaceful uses and for the benefit of all humanity, I think it's time for people, particularly in the West, to shift their perspectives. And this is why, as principal investigator for tumors in space from Norway, also from Canada, I'm absolutely proud to represent the China Space Station with our experiment.
Dr. Tricia LaRose, thank you so much for joining us. Dr. LaRose is principal investigator of the Cancer Research Group, Tumors in Space. Thank you. And
thank you.
Mr. Xu, talking about obstacles, geopolitics and geopolitical tensions is certainly one of them. How bothered or how concerned are you about these man-made barriers, let's say, to international cooperation?
Well, I think they're leading countries in the world for space, in the space community. We understand that U.S., Russia, China, and European Space Agency are among the leading organizations in space that they play an important role in space. The international infrastructure such as ISS, International Space Station, has been participated by a number of countries. And unfortunately, China was not part of that effort. But we are catching up with our own efforts. I think the geopolitical barriers are very much an obstacle to cooperation. But with the Europeans, we cooperate very closely, including the lunar sample return missions and lunar exploration missions and Mars missions. We're cooperating with European Space Agency for telemetry tracking and control of the spacecraft, as well as the instrument that flying on board the Chang'e missions. And also we cooperate with NASA on single project basis. This, of course, has to obtain the Congress approval and Senate approval, of course. But we did cooperate on the Chang'e 4 mission, on the landing and joint observation using U.S. Or lunar orbiter called Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter, LRO. So we did have some degrees of cooperation, and also we shared some of the lunar exploration data. Mm-hmm. I don't want to exclude the possibility of cooperating on board the Chinese space station, and also possibly collaboration in the future, as I have knowledge that some commercial cooperation already existed. For example, the NanoRacks company have already successfully put the Beijing Institute of Technology's microgravity experiments on board the International Space Station, which was a very successful mission. So all possibilities are open, and I think with the Chinese attitude, we're open for all kinds of international cooperation.
That would be really good news for many scientists around the world. We have with us now Professor Bernard Foing, Director of the International Lunar Exploration Working Group's Euro-Moon Mars project. Professor Foing, thank you so much for joining us. After the Chinese space station is completed, a space survey telescope will be launched. The China Sky Survey Telescope, CGTN, has similar designs and goals as the European Space Agency's Ulysses mission and NASA's mission, which will both launch in coming years. But will they be working in complementarity with each other?
So hello from Europe, and congratulations first to China for the launch of Tianhui core module, because that will be a great opportunity for international cooperation, but also for science. So we have discussed very interestingly the life science and medical science, but also that's an opportunity for space science and astrophysics, and indeed the deployment of the CGTN telescope survey would be a great achievement. Now there are differences. We have at the moment in Europe preparing the so-called Euclid the telescope mission. That's a mission that is targeted to study dark energy and dark matter. And for this, we are going to deploy a telescope, 1.2 meter diameter telescope, that will put in the Lagrangian point, so-called L2, 1.5 million kilometers away from Earth, and where you have a very good background for doing deep astronomy. And this will follow some of the discovery and work that we have done before with our Planck microwave background explorer that has mapped the first instant after the Big Bang, the big flash after the Big Bang, to cosmic microwave background. And from this, we can constrain the property of the universe, but with Euclid, we will be able to detect even dark matter, so matter that doesn't emit light. And for this, we are using a technique where we look at the deformation of the images of very far galaxies. And from these distorted images, we can reconstruct the map in all dimensions of dark matter. So we launched that in 2022, the first, and we will share the data with the world. So we have a team from all over the world of scientists also that will have access to the data. After this, we are expecting the launch of the US Nancy Roman telescope. And this is a telescope that is a bit bigger, 2.4 meters, the same size as the Hubble Space Telescope. It will be also put in L2 port, and it will have a camera that will allow deep observation, 300 times deeper than broader than the Hubble Space Telescope. But in addition, it has a special device, so-called coronagraph, that in some cases allows to remove the light from a star in order to detect exoplanets. So also some specific application. But now for CGTN, that will be also a great asset because it is also a 2-meter class telescope. So like the Hubble Space Telescope, it will have a 300 times the field of view of the Hubble Space Telescope, and it will also co-orbit with the Tianhui space station. And that's very interesting because, as you know, for the Hubble Space Telescope, we had a number of servicing missions that allow to put new instruments and to improve the science. And with this ability of co-orbiting, that it's unique, then we'll have also the possibility to put next generation instrument on the survey telescope. So
yeah, Professor Feng, talking about global cooperation here, Russia recently announced that it will leave the International Space Station project starting in 2025, and it is preparing to build its own space station by 2030. We know that ISS was once considered to be one of the most closely cooperated areas between Russia and the United States. Why did Russia end its cooperation with the U.S. for more, after working with it for more than 20 years?
So Russia is on board the International Space Station. We have now 11 astronauts, and you have seen them. There are some Russians. So Russia announced that they are planning to build a smaller national station, and I think that that could be put in operation, when the ISS is going to its end. But Russia has not yet announced that they are leaving the International Space Station, so they have agreed at least until end of 2024 to cooperate, and then there will be a transition phase where we'll see, depending on the state of health of the International Space Station and safety, what will be done. Also, from the US side, they are looking at involving some commercial operators to decrease some of the cost of running the space station, in order also to start funding other initiatives like a smaller commercial station or a station around the moon. So we are still working very well with our Russian colleagues, and in terms of the science, and we believe as well that the space station in the past and in the future will be a great platform for common science, for international cooperation, even at times where the politics are a bit in tension. In space, we are all together, and we promote science cooperation to the benefit of humanity.
Of mankind in general. Let's hope that's the case. Mr. Xu, International Space System was established in 1988 and will be retired in 2024. Does that mean China's space station will be one of the very few in orbit?
Well, I think with the 2024 imminent retirement timing of the International Space Station, there's also an intention of commercializing all the assets on board, as well as some of the nations that want to split and they want to have their own infrastructures. China has always been indigenous in their own development programs, and we have started launching the Tianhe. The first segment launched this morning would be the beginning of the station. Lasts at least 10 years, and maybe even more. So we are operating this until the year 2031 at least. So 2024 will be time for the retirement of International Space Station. Commercialization is one big impact At the same time, also we see a big commercial booming market in China as well for space. We have 141 companies registered for space, like launch vehicles, propulsion, satellite manufacturing, and all that, by the year 2018 already. Also, U.S. government have called an initiative called Commercial LEO. LEO stands for Low Earth Orbit. So low Earth orbit infrastructure will all be commercialized. Either it's government or military or civilian applications. So all of those will be commercialized very soon. So this is also one effort to see the commercialization of International Space Station. But also I firmly believe that these two infrastructures will coexist for a period of time and will be mutually supplementary to each other.
All right. Professor Foing, NASA announced on January the 27th that they selected Houston-based Axiom Space to build a commercial space station module. The company plans to launch its own first module as soon as 2024. What do you think of NASA? You mean choosing a commercial space station after retiring from ISS?
So actually, NASA announced the launch of astronauts through this commercial company. So that was the real announcement. NASA has not announced then the build-up of the commercial station. So there are a number of actors that would like to build some commercial station, but at the moment they don't have the full funding. You know, this is a class of funding which is something like 50 times bigger than the launch of an individual astronaut. So now I think this is coming, and the commercial world is changing very much how we are going to explore Earth's orbit, but also the moon. There are a number of initiatives now. For instance, NASA has selected for the lunar human lander, a commercial company, SpaceX, that has to deliver for a cost of $3 billion human lander. And this goes very well along some of the projects that we have started at ESA in collaboration, not only with NASA, where we collaborated on the human spaceflight, and we are going to send also some of our astronauts to this lunar station, but we will also accompany NASA in some of the Artemis program, where ESA is delivering some service module. But from the robotic side, we have been also working in Europe hand in hand with China, and I was very pleased to collaborate at the time where I was leading the Smart One lunar mission of ESA, the first of this millennium. We shared our data with China, with Russia, and all the world. And in counterpart, we were invited to collaborate to help the Chang'e program, and ESA provided ground station and scientific and technical expertise. And since the first launch until the recent Chang'e 5 beautiful sample return, European engineers and scientists have been really supporting the Chang'e program. In parallel, in Europe, we are also collaborating with Russia on some of the robotic program, the Luna mission, Luna 25, that will go toward the pole, and Luna 27, where we will go to the South Polar region to try to extract ice. And so this partnership between Russia and China is also a great significance for international cooperation, as we had put on a roadmap, you know, to go phase by phase in orbit, to go then in lunar orbit, and then on the lunar surface. And we are looking forward all these opportunities for us to work together.
All right, Professor Bernard Foing, thank you so much for joining us tonight. And also Director General Xu Yansong, thank you for being with us. We learned a lot. And thank you for watching Dialogue. I'm Wang Wen in Beijing.